to sing, and I'd like to share with you a sentiment of loving kindness. This is a way of setting the intention for our practice today. And this is I love this part of the practice because for me, I really try to make it new and fresh every time. There's something about the ritual of inviting a chime to sing. There's something about going to my wonderful handmade bowl filled with all of these sentiments of metta, some of which were hand painted by various Sangha members who send me art. And rituals, these kinds of rituals are nothing more than the enactment of an intention. And the intention here today is to really settle into a practice of mindfulness that is infused and imbued with the essence of loving kindness. Welcome, everyone. This is SatiSeva. And the sentiment of metta I'd like to share with you today, let me go through this, is this pink and purple one. Here's a little painting. This one reads, "May I believe the raw workings of my imagination. May I believe the raw workings of my imagination." Sometimes I write these sentiments and I read them and I think, what did I mean? So if you're wondering, what does she mean by that? Welcome to the club. I have no idea. And sometimes when I start talking, it gets clearer. So the raw workings of my imagination. The raw workings of my imagination. I'm going to close my eyes and just allow that to sort of massage my brain and my heart a little bit. And what's coming alive as I sit here is my imagination isn't always clear. My imagination is highly active and not always clear, not always focused, not always directed. My imagination is often in a swirl. And so a lot of stuff gets churned up. And as I see that in my imagination, I realize, oh yeah, there's the raw workings. There's the raw process. And what I believe in that process and in that churning is that I will eventually get to some clarity, that I can apply a little bit of ease. I have the capacity to slow down the swirl so things begin to settle. And the raw process of my imagination and the raw churning of my imagination begins to coalesce. And what I see, what I envision becomes clearer. And I do that, friends, by coming into the first foundation of mindfulness, which is the body. And I invite us to do that right now. So, what I'd invite you to do with your body today is you turn your gaze to the body, is just focus at the level of the collarbones and up. Let's just limit our gaze to the head and neck and the tops of the shoulders. And just notice what you notice. If you feel the need to move a little bit, go for it. If you want to enact the muscles on the face, raise your eyebrows, squint your eyes, open your mouth, do that. And then allow your face to relax. And as you get some awareness and some relaxation in the head and the neck, bring your awareness down farther into the body, both inward and upon the body. And if you can, bring with you a warmth in your gaze so that the body can experience this warm, calming sensation as your attention descends to the level of the heart, all the way down your arms. I'm moving my hands slowly down as I go into the core of my body, the level of the lungs, all your internal organs, the lower chakras, the sacral chakra, the root chakra, maybe even some warmth on your thighs. You can use your hands and touch your thighs. You can even bend at the hips if you're sitting down and allow your hands to cascade over your knees and down your shins and maybe wiggle your toes a little bit. And then on an inhalation, breathe in. Lift your shoulders up as you inhale. And as you exhale, just allow them to drip and soften down and allow your posture to settle completely. Nice and relaxed. Oftentimes, when I'm in a seated posture on my cushion, I like to have my spine nice and straight, my belly soft. Today, my spine is a little bit compressed. I'm not totally zen straight, and that feels true to my posture today. If you're noticing any tension anywhere in the body, just take a few minutes to invite a warming, gentle, friendly breath to whatever part of your body is holding some tension, and see if you can, on the inhalation, bring that warmth, really highlight that area. And on the exhalation, invite some ease, breathing in warmth, breathing out ease. I'd like to invite you to create a profound silence in the body. A silence so deep that your ears and your hearing becomes heightened. Pay attention to what you're hearing only at the level of your ears. What's coming through? Keep your body completely still. If you find yourself holding your breath, invite a little warmth to your diaphragm so you can relax and slowly, simply breathe in and out as you listen. Friends, we've been exploring the second mindfulness practice in our SatiSeva offering. And this is the mindfulness practice of openness. And I'm not talking about openness in terms of tolerance. I'm talking about openness in terms of curiosity and wonder. Openness that is calm and joyful. Openness that has an incredible capacity to be surprised. An openness that can meet tension, tightness with that element of surprise. What else is here? What else might I not be seeing? Openness that encourages nurturance to create the conditions for a growth mindset as opposed to a fixed mind. Openness in the sense that when we identify, oh, right, look at me, I'm totally in a fixed mind state, the habit energy of my beliefs. I've always believed this. I've never questioned it. This is what I believe. This is what my family believe. This is the only thing I know. That's it. That's a fixed mind. And it exists often beyond right and wrong duality. It simply is, in this practice of openness, the capacity to observe that I am in a fixed mind. Okay. With a little bit of openness, can I invite just a smidge of curiosity, a crack of possibility to allow just a tiny light through, a glow, a flicker of some other kind of luminescence that can turn my gaze, soften the whole fixation, and expand my perception. That's what a growth mind does. Today, I'd like to share with you a couple of paragraphs from the book. And the section that we're going to be reading is I am right. And that fixed mind, I am right, it doesn't necessarily or inherently have to be correct or even wrong. It's just a state of mind. And it could actually be true. With openness, however, even when things are true, openness is quick to claim, what else is true? Is it the whole truth? because my rightness is simply just mine. Your rightness could be yours. And together, two rights here, two truths could bring us closer to the truth. I often bring as an example, a mug that I have. And one side of the mug is blank. It's just a brown beige mug. And if I'm showing it to you, that's what you see. And that's absolutely true. On my view, my perception of my mug has some spirals on it, but you can't see it because it's on the other side. And what I see is also true. And both of those perceptions, both of those perspectives make the truth of my mug. But what happens is I sometimes get so fixated on what's right and my point of view that I can't hold space for somebody's point of view that could be very different than my own. I'm fixed on my own perception. I'm fixed on my own perspective. I clamp down, tighten up, and I make no space for your experience, your perception, your point of view. And that's what can happen in the state of a fixed mind. But if I can soften it and open up a little bit, I can say, well, maybe something else is here that I'm not seeing. Something else could be true. What is it? So, with that, let me read this for you. It's called I Am Right. From a spiritual point of view, one of the most humbling aspects when cultivating openness addresses the notion that what feels right for me should be right for everyone. Although I recognize this is a distortion, I can sometimes get locked into feeling that way. I'm not alone. So I'm going to include you in my reflection. When others do not behave in the way we think they should, we feel disheartened. We begin to suffer because life and people are not conforming to our expectations. Practicing openness helps soften and mature this rigid, legacy oriented mind state. This is where I turn once again to the instrument of peace. This is true and not the whole truth. It is true that I cannot control my loved one's habit energy. It is also true that at times I feel as though I should be able to. My inner critic is quick to suggest that if I could just be more of this or less of that, I would be able to inspire change. This reflects a lingering impression of my highly egocentric and immature self, which simply needs attention and maturation. Rather than judging myself harshly or pretending that the ego is something I should or even could get rid of, I recognize how true and real this feeling is for me. Then I acknowledge that my feelings and thoughts may not be the whole truth. I have watched thoughts and judgments about my loved ones rise and fall in my mind many times. It is a fact that I think you should act a certain way. I think my perceptions are the right way. Your way is causing suffering. Clearly, your way is wrong. Using the instrument of peace, this is true and not the whole truth, invites curiosity. So here's a practice of inquiry, friends. What else is true? What makes me think what I think? Do I think my perspective is more valid than someone else's? What makes me think I have a handle on anyone's recovery? Who am I to interfere with someone's karma? And how do I stay open to events unfolding as they are? Access to broader truths requires cultivating openness. We must balance our habitual patterns in one hand while holding space for new possibilities in the other. Creating this kind of openness allows us to examine duality. Dualistic thinking, commonly referred to as either or thinking, serves as a predominant lens for most Western minds. Within the realm of recovery, duality remains the dominant attitude, categorizing behaviors as either complete abstinence from a substance as good or any form of use as bad. That may be true, and it is not the whole truth. What else is true? Friends, one of the things that's happening in the contemporary understanding of addiction science and addiction medicine and having these more in-depth, non-dualistic, not black and white thinking conversations about what it means to be in recovery is it's really opening us up to having some very rich and textured conversations. I can't tell you how many people I meet who have stopped using a very harmful substance. They're in the clear of that. It's like the one thing that was really ruining their lives, but they're still using another substance. However, they're functioning, they're able to maintain relationships, able to maintain a life, they have a sense of joy and purpose. And in traditional ideology, that person would be judged negatively and sometimes quite harshly with a whole bunch of stigma while they're still using. They've just replaced one drug for another. And again, true. And not the whole truth. Look at the whole of this person. Yes, they're still using substances. And they're having quality conversations about that, honest conversations about that. They're shifting their relationships to all kinds of maladaptive coping styles. They're engaged, full of purpose and hope. How is that a bad thing? And so the fixed mind says, no, they have to be completely abstinent, no substances on board whatsoever. And that energy, that messaging is incredibly heavy handed for some people. And again, that can be true for some people, but it doesn't mean it's true for everybody. And so the practice of openness really encourages us to stop smearing our perspectives in such a way that we fail to see a whole human being before us, where they are, how they are, whether they're meeting our expectations or not. And furthermore, the cultivation of openness enables us to stand in that posture of confidence. I may not be meeting your expectations. You may be disappointed because I am engaged in the relationship of my habit energy in a way that you don't agree with, in a way that you don't like, in a way that makes you uncomfortable. All of that is true. And that is yours. My job is to stay in the sanctity of my space, my life, and to see what's working for me. And your job is to stay in the sanctity of your space to see what's working for you. And together we come to the wall and we have a conversation. We come to this boundary and we have a conversation. And here's where it's painful. We may not meet eye to eye. We may not be able to agree. We may not be able to support each other fully. Regardless, can we at least have an honest conversation about it? And if the answer is yes, friends, that is a sacred foundation, and that is a heart-filled foundation. It is solid, and from there, things can build and grow. Because we're not coming to the boundary, we're not coming to the balaklohe, the border, the altar of understanding, fixed. It's my way or the highway. We're coming to a place that says, hey, I'm not quite on board with where you're at, but I'm here and I'm open and I'd like to invest in this understanding. That's the purpose of a healthy boundary and altar of understanding. But we can't create that condition if we're not each of us doing our own spiritual work. So let's, for the next several minutes, let's do some work. Let's make some effort here. And we began this practice with the raw workings of the imagination. And we created some profound silence and stillness. And I'd like to return to that. Only this time, I'd like to invite you into an open space. And I'd like you to frame that space in a beautiful boundary, a border, something that feels like a temple, someplace sacred. And what you're building around yourself is a reminder that you, your life exactly as it is, whether it's in chaos or clarity, whether it's pristine and fabulous, whether it is a dumpster fire, your life exactly as it is in this moment is sacred. And I say that without a hint of irony, because this is a spiritual practice. And in the realm of spirit, everything is sacred. Nothing lives outside the sacred. So you, in your open space, what does it look like? Let your imagination roam. Maybe you're sitting on a beach, staring into the wide open expanse of the sea, but you have encircled yourself with beautiful stones that have been rolled in onto the shore by the sea. And maybe you're listening to the ancient conversation that the water and the land have been having for thousands and thousands of years. Maybe you're in a meadow or in a forest, it doesn't matter. Find what's coming alive in your imagination and put yourself in a sacred space and surround yourself with beauty. And as you're settling in to the image, invite your body to be incredibly still. Close your eyes if that's available to you and perk up your ears and listen. Your wisdom, your bright mind and heart may be asking you to open to something. Can you hear what it is? If your mind wanders into thoughts and stories, on the next inhalation, smile that you've noticed. And as you exhale, relax the face, come back into this moment of profound stillness and deep listening in the sanctuary of your space, of your life. How are you experiencing openness? Enjoy this time of curious reflection. Friends, as we take a step toward the conclusion of this reflection time, imagine putting your hands down wherever you are, whether it's on the earth, or maybe you've been in the water, or maybe you can lift your hands up to the cosmos, just making some contact in your imagination. And here's a little inquiry. Is your mind in a place where it can entertain that life is conspiring for my well-being? Or is your mind entertaining that life is against me? I'm not held. I'm not seen. I'm not supported. Something to observe, something to notice. Take a deep breath in and slowly let it all out. So that we can integrate our practice. Sometimes the conditions of our lives are that we have to really explore the archetypes of the victim. We have to explore the archetype of being host to a pity party, and to create the space and the openness to really explore that, to really entertain that. I know years ago when life was very, very difficult at one time in my life, I would literally call people and say, I'm having a pity party. Would you like to come? I've made a cake. And it was just a way of acknowledging that I'm feeling sorry for myself because it's really hard. And it's a sorry situation. It's a sorry state of being, and it's hard. And I need some support. And I also need to not feel this way because it feels so uncomfortable. And I know that laughing helps. I know that sharing helps. And I know that being with other people who can relate helps. So bake it, cake is magical. So have a pity party when you need to and invite people. I want to share with you ever so briefly before we dedicate our practice today. Something that came to me as I was meditating. So I think many of you who practice with me know that I have a highly active imagination. It is not uncommon for me to get really quiet and really still, and things come to me. Images come to me, poetry comes to me, spiritual teachings come to me, and so forth. And today, what came to me is I was imagining myself in my sort of classic space, my sanctuary, which, by the way, often looks like where Rick lives in Scotland or Ireland, just this beautiful rolling green with very ancient stone walls. And I'm somewhere in the middle of kind of a bordered, framed place. So the view is expansive, the feeling is cool, and the colors are very grounded. And what came to me today is, what if I'm boundaried with not necessarily another person, but my aspirations? And so then I thought about that and I was like, wow. So what if my aspiration that's in its own sacred space is to be free from negative habit energy, whatever that is for me, rather than it being this perfect, idyllic thing that I need to have for myself. What if I'm already in a sacred place? My aspiration is a sacred place. And every once in a while, I get to jump the wall and go into that space and snoop around because I'm really snoopy. If I'm a house guest, hide your stuff because I'll snoop through your stuff. I'm just going to admit it right there. I'm such a nosy Nelly. So what if I slipped over into my aspiration space and I snooped around and I have permission and I took some things from that sacred space and I brought it into my own space. So I keep drawing from my aspirations and I keep beatifying my own space rather than insisting that where I am in my space needs to be that. It was just something that I played with, something that this openness came to me. And then I realized, oh, everybody who I'm boundaried with has that kind of sanctity, and I can sort of draw from the sanctuaries of others with permission, of course, and with conversation to keep my space imbued with the goodness that's always around me all the time, above me, below me, beside me, all around me and within me. So that's my final thought for you to be playing with today, and to notice spaces. Notice how you feel in certain spaces. Really take stock of that and what in your space needs a little touch up, needs a little bit more beauty, and where can you go find that and bring it to yourself. All righty, friends. I just want to end with a couple of announcements. So we meet at 1 o'clock. We're going to turn the meeting off so Lo and I can have a little lunch. And then we'll be back at 1 o'clock for Recovery Dharma. We're going to be continuing our conversation with Shantideva and the Guide to the Bodhisattva's Way of Life. We are going to, on April 25th, it's a Saturday, we're going to have a sound bath here at Soul Center. You can join us online or in person. It's a Reiki sound bath. So one of our yoga instructors, Raven, offers Reiki, and then I do all the sound, and it should be really, really beautiful. We offer these workshops and classes and things like this as a way of helping us underwrite the cost of having a physical space. And so your participation in that is a way of offering dana, basically, to keep this going. If you want to buy a book, the SatiSeva book, you can order it online. If you live internationally, that's really the only option available to you. But if you live in the United States, you can order it from Soul Center, and I'll sign a copy for you and gussy it all up. Lo will put that in the chat. And I think that's it for now. I will encourage you, if you have any questions or concerns, or if you'd like to just ventilate some thoughts or whatever, go ahead and email me. I'm so happy to do that. If you'd like to be a pen pal, you can do that. Send me your mailing address. I write cards regularly, and it's one of my practices. So with that, friends, let's go ahead and end our gathering today with a dedication. And I'd like you to return to your body, return to the foundation of mindfulness as the body. Mindfulness, sati, it means present time awareness. What are you doing in this moment? How is your body in this moment? Moment to moment to moment. And, we live in such a way that we're not always mindful. We can't always be aware all of the time. But it's a comfort to me anyway to know that mindfulness is always available to me. It's always waiting for me to check in, tap in, and then come back into the distraction of my life. And the place to immediately tap into mindfulness is the body. Quick check-in. How you doing? Quick check-in with the mood, your emotions. Quick check-in with your thoughts and stories, the perceptions that you're entertaining. These are the foundations of mindfulness that guide us, that show us the corners in our lives that we've neglected or abandoned, that show us the bright distortions that govern and operate our attitudes sometimes, that remind us to stay open and to recognize that, like a still body of water, we can be that still body of water. And one small, simple, beautiful action can ripple out far and wide. One simple, unskillful action has the same effect. We are powerful beyond measure. We are held in the most sacred gaze. And we are always invited to align and realign with our aspiration so that our precious human light can come into the light and shine. This, my friends, is a source of profound healing. And you and I, we can master it. We are each of us the creators of this precious life. And it's a gift to share. We'll see you next time. We'll be back for SatiSeva on Sunday. We'll be back for Recovery Dharma in 30 minutes. See you later, friends. Namaste.